Hey, what's good? It's me, Lex, back at you with another Pathfinder video. Today I'm going over the Vindicator class archetype. This is the class archetype in Pathfinder War of Immortals. Shout out to Paizo for giving me a free review copy, but as always, my opinions are my own. First things first, before we get into anything, the pitch of Vindicator is that you're kind of a holy hunter. You hunt things down for your deity. And I want to cover the additional feats section. You have the domain initiate and advanced domain feats at their normal levels. In fact, all of your additional feats are granted to you at their normal levels, so you can gain access to all of the domain spells from all of the gods in the Pathfinder setting, just as a cleric could. There are quite a few of these that are quite good, but domains are very hit or miss. I would recommend only investing in this if you have a lot of time to read through and choose things that are going to satisfy you, because if you pick at random, there is a pretty decent chance that you're going to struggle and find a focus spell that I don't think is going to be particularly enjoyable to have. At level 4, you gain the Instructive Strike feat, or well, you gain the access to take it as a feat. This is a very potent Thaumaturge feat, and I believe it also got added to Investigator. It allows you to make a strike, and on a hit you get to recall knowledge. On a critical hit you gain a bonus to that recall knowledge check. It's really good action economy compression, especially because of how potent recall knowledge can be. I'm always going to advocate for recall knowledge, and specifically homebrewing it if your party isn't taking advantage of it, to just be a little more forgiving, because the ability to gain information and then play around that information is one of the most fun things in Pathfinder. It's a number game for a lot of people, and so being able to understand and play with those numbers is a lot of fun. You can also grab the ongoing investigation feat at level 4. This lets you move at full speed while using the investigate exploration activity and use a second exploration activity while investigating. Investigating is, in my opinion, woefully underutilized in Paizo's adventure paths, and can be difficult to remember even as a normal GM. It has a lot of overlap with search in how people run it, and so this feat can be really good at a table or not the greatest. Then at level 6, you can take the Thorough Research feat. When you succeed at a recall knowledge check, you gain additional info, and when you critically succeed, you get even more additional info. This is very big. There's another feat similar to this called Know-It-All, and then I believe there's a third one in the Pathfinder Agent archetype that I do not remember the name of. It might be Know-It-All, actually, that does this. This improves the amount of information you gain on a recall knowledge check. It just doubles it and triples it on a crit. It's great. An amazing pickup if your game is one where you can properly take advantage of information. And then there's the advanced domain that I mentioned before. So you can see already from the granted additional feats that you're allowed to take with your feat slots that Vindicator is very much kind of bringing in this idea of information and like learning about something and then hunting it down. It has a lot of things that, you know, coincide with Investigator or Thaumaturge, and that's always a good sign for me. I love those classes. If you choose the Vindicator class archetype, as normal, you have to take the Vindicator Dedication as your second level class feat. It adjusts your statistics such that you need to choose a deity to be a follower of, and you have to become sanctified. Then you are trained in religion instead of nature. You become trained in their favored weapon. If it's a simple weapon or unarmed attack with a damage die smaller than a d6, you gain Deadly Simplicity. If it's advanced, then your proficiency with it is equal to your proficiency with martial weapons. you have to choose the Vindication Edge, and you learn Warden spells as divine spells instead of primal spells, and your casting attribute is Wisdom. And when you gain domain spells via the Domain Initiate or Advanced Domain feats, they're all Warden spells for the purposes of all of your Vindicator's feats and abilities. The Vindication Edge, and so the benefit that you're going to be gaining against your hunted prey, is that you gain a +1 status bonus to spell attack rolls against your hunted prey, and they take a -1 status penalty to their saving throws against divine spells you cast. You also gain the Vindicator's Mark Warden spell, which I'll get into in just a moment. But at 17th level, your Vindication Edge improves to be a +2 status bonus or -2 status penalty. I actually have compiled a little sheet here that shows at the very top here I have the standard spell DC. This is the spell DC of just a wizard, witch, any full caster that's investing everything they can into their spell DC. And then below I have the Vindicator's DC with and without an apex item in Wisdom. And then the effective DC that you have against your hunted prey. And so this is because your DC would be at level 18 here 40. When you have a -2 penalty on their save, your effective DC is 42. It's important to note here, and I have this thing on the side to indicate which levels you're equal at, better at, worse at, etc. But it is important to note that because this is a status penalty, a full caster who is benefiting from something like the fear effect or say clumsy or stupefied on an enemy is going to be gaining those same bonuses, and so will be ahead of you. Vindicator is not going to be keeping up with a full caster playing at full capacity, but they are going to be able to keep up with, and at some levels even exceed, a full caster that is not able to regularly or entirely take advantage of those penalties to the enemies. And because those penalties can sometimes be very difficult to apply and keep up, they're either resource or action intensive. You know, you have to cast fear every other turn just to keep it up for your other spells. It means that I think the Vindicator is super solid in their casting ability. They essentially get to, against their hunted prey, function more or less on average as if they were a full caster. Sometimes better, sometimes worse, but nothing too big that I think you're really going to notice it. Anyways, the Vindicator's Mark Warden spell that you gain at first level is a 2-action Manipulate Sanctified 60-foot targeting your hunted prey focus spell. It targets their AC and has a duration of a minute. You launch a dart at them, which marks them with a nimbus only you can detect. Make a spell attack against them, and on a hit you do 2d4 spirit, and they're marked by that glowing nimbus. For the duration of your spell, they take an additional 2 damage from all of your weapon or unarmed attacks. And if they turn invisible somehow, they become concealed rather than undetected, so you can continue to track them and they can't sneak away from you. You can also dismiss the spell as an action on your turn if your last action dealt damage to the target with a weapon or unarmed attack, and this instantly deals an additional 2d6 spirit damage to it with no save. And then it heightens every other level, so it'll heighten up at 3rd, 5th, 7th, and 9th to increase the damage by another 2d4 on the initial. The additional damage you do increases by 1, and the damage dealt when you dismiss by another d6. So eventually this is going to be hitting for 10d4 spirit damage on the initial hit, providing you a +6 damage bonus on all of your weapon or unarmed attacks, and dismissing it will do another 6d6 spirit damage. This is honestly really, really good. The biggest issue is that because you are still lacking in your casting ability, and you have to hit an AC defense with this, there's a chance that you just miss and do nothing. But if you do hit, then it's definitely accomplishing what the class is setting forth. the idea of sticking someone with your Vindicator's mark and then being able to hunt them down and destroy them is great. Being able to dismiss it and deal automatic damage as well, regardless of range, as long as you hit them and then dismiss it, then you can do extra damage. That's big. Magic Missile is, or Force Barrage now, is incredible for its ability to deal damage without any sort of save. And so I think this is a great focus spell. And especially when combined with your status bonus from your edge, because it can only target your hunted prey, it's always going to be benefiting from that. And so it's going to feel great. And then at level 5, the Trackless Journey Ranger feature is changed to gain the benefits in either urban or natural terrain, which is chosen when you gain the class feature. And just to bring that over here from the Ranger Archives of Nethys page, Trackless Journey makes it so that you gain the benefits of cover track in such terrains without moving at half speed. So things will struggle to track you in urban or natural terrain of your choice. The Vindicator Feats, let's get into that now. At 2nd level, you're always going to get the Vindicator Dedication. This allows you to use a religion to coerce, gather information, make an impression, or make a request as long as you're in a town or city with a church dedicated to your deity. If the target of the check is also a worshipper of your deity, or is your hunted prey, you gain a +2 circumstance bonus to the check. Now, this feature is definitely very small in scope. It does a lot of social and downtime type features, exploration mode features, and the fact that the town or city has to have a church dedicated to your deity definitely limits the deities that you might want to follow as a Vindicator. But it's very flavorful, and ultimately it's going to be helpful in the situation for which it's relevant, and particularly being able to gain a bonus if the other person is a follower or worshiper of your of your deity, then it's I'm trying to talk it up. I don't put a lot of stake into this as power, but I think it's very flavorful. That's what I would summarize as. The only level 6 feats, there are no level 4 feats, other than the granted feats, and I'll be ignoring the granted feats as I say things like that as we go forward, is Interrogate. As an action, it's linguistic and mental and auditory. You ask a question of a non-allied creature that you can see and have been conversing with, attempt an intimidation against their will DC if they're a member of the same religion, or undead or were creatures pretending to be a member of your faith, which is very niche. You gain a +2 circ bonus on the check, and then they're immune for an hour. On a critical success, they have to answer, but they don't have to answer truthfully. But you gain a +4 circ bonus to your DC if they attempt to lie to you. And then success is the same as success, but only a +2 if they fulfill those additional clarifying context. On a failure, they refuse to answer you and become unfriendly if they weren't already unfriendly or hostile. And on a critical failure, they become hostile if they weren't already. This is very similar to an investigator feature, which I'm going to bring up very quickly here. Investigator, in fact, has a methodology called interrogation. But here we go. Interrogation has the pointed question feat, which is the same thing, except instead of an intimidation check, it's a diplomacy check. It'll depend on your GM and the context of the campaign you're in. I think a lot of Vindicator's features are going to benefit from being in a campaign that fits them more. But if your GM allows you to, say, apply this into the middle of combat, have been conversing with is a little bit loosely defined. It could be interpreted to mean that you can use it in combat if you spoke a little bit before or even maybe during. Then you could gain a little bit of information, potentially, which is fine. Disrupt Opposed Magic is the only level 8 feat here, and it's a really strong one. As a reaction, when a creature you can observe within your reach or within your weapon's first range increment if you're wielding a ranged weapon casts a spell and you are wielding your deity's favored weapon, you make a strike against the triggering opponent, and if you succeed, you disrupt the spell. It doesn't have to be your hunted prey, and you don't have to identify the spell. It doesn't have to be a certain kind of spell. It doesn't even have to have manipulate. They just have to cast a spell, you reactive strike them, and if you hit, it's interrupted. This is probably going to receive adjustments in my game because I think that it encourages unhealthy player behavior at the table. I've never been a huge fan of features that just immediately shut something down, especially for such little cost as just a reaction and, say, an arrow. But it's definitely within Paizo's balance parameters. You can run it as is if you want to. Just know that if you do run a spellcaster, they're very likely not going to contribute much of anything to a combat unless you have multiple of them, or something else occupying the Vindicator's reaction. The level 10 feat, and only one of that type, is the Vindicator's Judgment feat. This gives you access to the Vindicator's Judgment focus spell. As an action, with the Manipulate trait, 60-foot range, targeting your hunted prey with a fort save and a duration of 1 minute. The target takes extra damage from your attacks depending on the result of their fortitude save. And it ends immediately if they are no longer your hunted prey at any point. On a success, so even if they succeed on the save, they have weakness 5 to the next strike you make against them or damaging divine spell you cast that includes it as a target. And I like that they include it as a target on the spells here because it means you can use multi-target spells. On a failure, it's weakness 5 to all strikes you make against it or damaging divine spells, yada yada. And on a critical failure, it's as failure, but the target is off guard against the first strike or divine spell attack you make against it for each round for the duration of the spell. This is really great. As a single action, and even though it's on fortitude, which tends to be the best save of many creatures, having some effect on a success and having this continual effect on a failure, and a really solid critical failure effect, and then it heightens to a weakness of 10 at 7th rank, and a weakness of 15 at 9th rank. This is a lot of fun. Again, you're going to kind of struggle to land this on some creatures, because Fortitude is usually a high save DC, and your spellcasting DC is also going to be not the greatest, although it is made up for by your Vindication edge, so you'll see more successes than other players would if they just had focus spells, and particularly Ranger has some decent spellcasting progression. But this is very flavorful. It's a lot of fun. You get to pronounce terrible judgment upon your quarry. And it can add a lot of damage over the course of a fight, especially when combined with your Vindicator's mark. Now you're adding 6 damage to all of your hits, and another 15 at higher levels if you got a Vindicator's Judgment off. Maybe they're off guard and you're using an Arbalest for the Backstabber trait, and you have Crossbow Ace, you're getting even more damage. It's a lot of potential. And then finally, the level 12 feat and highest level feat of the Vindicator dedication is Call the Hunt. As an action, when you are observing your hunted prey, until the start of your next turn, whenever your hunted prey is within reach of you and at least one of your allies, it's off guard to all melee attacks. And if you're sanctified, the unarmed attacks and weapon strikes of you and all your allies gain the benefits of your sanctification against your hunted prey. This is gang up, but as an action, and it shares your sanctification. Gang up is one of the strongest feats in the entirety of the game, so it's still solid even with an action cost and at twice the level. What do I think of the Vindicator class archetype overall? I think that it is very effective at creating this image of a divine ranger. You're able to hunt down creatures in the name of your faith. You're able to gain a lot of information because you're more focused on that sort of social aspect of hunting as a ranger, who specializes in like hunting in cities and such. I like that we have a hunter's edge for spellcasting now. You can take advantage of these spellcasting benefits because it's spell attack rolls and saving throws against divine spells you cast and not just warden spells. It also means that you can pick up a spellcasting archetype and be gaining those benefits on even more spells. Cast heal out of a scroll and have the enemies around you melt away as if you were a cleric almost. But I've been wanting something like this for a long time where you could use the warden spells with even more efficacy, and I think that Vindicator really nails that idea. I think that there are a couple of pain points in how niche some of the benefits are, like needing a church dedicated to your deity to be able to use religion. I understand that it's for flavor, but it seems like it might lead to a little bit of frustration on both sides of the screen, because now the game master needs to determine whether or not this faith would be here, and your ability may or may not function, and all for a +2 circumstance bonus. Up here with Interrogate, undead or were creatures pretending to be a member of your faith, that's so specific, and I understand that it's meant to be evocative. And there's definitely a lot of fun in that, but I personally feel that things should be a little more opened up and more conceptual in nature than hyper-specific like that, because this, to me, reads as an ability that you take in a specific campaign where you're told up front, oh, there's werewolves pretending to be members of this church, and you're like, oh, well, I'll play a Vindicator and take the Interrogate feat. But otherwise, I'm not gonna. Stuff like that. Not that you necessarily would entirely avoid it. That's only for the circumstance bonus. But that's the idea in my mind of why I think conceptual design is a little bit more solid. But at any rate, Vindicator is a great class archetype. I'm looking forward to seeing a lot of characters built around this, the stories that can be told with it. It's something that wasn't really achievable before, and the Vindicator's edge as well just functions independent of flavor or character design as being able to use your magic more effectively as a ranger, which is definitely something that I think we needed. I give a very solid recommendation of the Vindicator class archetype. That's all for me. Leave a like if you liked the video. Subscribe if you would like to see more. Toss me a few bucks on coffee if you would like to keep the channel running. In fact, I have gotten a couple of donations, and I would like to read out names of people who did provide their names. Just at the end of every video, I'll be reading out any any donations that I got on coffee. So thank you to Frankie, Saris, and 2 anonymous supporters for your donations on coffee. Anyways, that's been it from me. I will see you all next time. See ya. See ya.